I welcome you for this presentation, and this is a fresh module. The topic will be energy principle and energy theorem. We are discussing in analysis of determinate structure about the deflection of any structure and what about the shear force, what about the bending moment of the structure. So these are all the internal character of a structure, and only we can see either the force which is acting or the displacement which is acting in a structure externally. But what is happening inside the structure might be a column or it might be a slab, beam, etc. What is the control we have? Either the force we can have as the control or the displacement which we can have. So what is the requirement of energy principle? Some force are visible and some force are not visible to the civil engineers, and the forces which are acting in a structure, say for example if it is a live load and you can keep number of table or chair, or it might be a cot in your building. So these are all the forces which are known, the common load. So we can take an average load for a cot or an average load for a table, and according to the utility of the structure we can take the forces. So we can identify that what are all the probable loads which can happen, how many person which can occupy a room, we can identify, and in these cases we can derive the forces. So the forces are known. What about when the forces are unknown? The internal behavior of a structure in order to build a stable and strong structure. Okay, let this be one case. And in case of wind, can you quantify a wind? Can you see a wind? And the civil engineers are facing these issues. So you need to identify what is the load coming on and what is the load coming into the structure, which is in form of a wind or which is in form of a earthquake. So these are the loads which are visibly unknown, but you have to assume that what is the preferable amount of load which is acting in a structure, and you have to make certain precautionary measure and requirement to build a structure. Okay, this is the case. So in one case the load is known and in other case the load is unknown, only the displacement are known. And how we know that either the wind is acting in a structure? We can observe the displacement. If you are standing in a tall structure which is flexible, you can observe that the flagpole, the top of the flagpoles are vibrating, and it vibrates according to the intensity of wind. And we can observe that through the displacement, not having the control of the force, but we have the visibility of observing the displacement. Okay, in some cases the force are visible, in some cases the displacement are visible. So as a civil engineer you have to deal with these kind of problem, and what we need is we need ultimately a strong and stable structure which would serve its life for the requirement. In order to meet that, there are different principles and different theories which are required in order to sort out different kind of unknown parameter in a structure. So energy principle here what we are discussing now does help majority of the problems which are faced by the civil engineers. So these problems can be applied where your material might be different. For a same structure you are going for two or more types of material. You can use for different section, a section which is having varying depth, and you can use for a structure where the loads are unknown, where the displacement are unknown, only the loads are known. So for these kind of practical issues you can use energy principle. These are all the advanced method of analysis. By using this technique you can identify the deflection, reactions, shear force and bending moment for a structure. Yes, let us discuss that. Okay, what are the energy concept? Is the first thing which we have to discuss is the strain energy. So when you talk about energy, even the physics also have different phenomena. Either the light can be observed as a particle or the light can be observed as a wave. That is the energy. You can either indicate a material as a particle which has a mass, or you can identify a material which has a wave form or it has an energy form. So these are the two parameters which is existing in physics also. Now in terms of civil engineering, you can make this energy theory into the structures, and the strain energy is also a energy concept which we can apply for day to day life. And strain energy is defined as the energy stored in a body due to deformation. So I have given an example here, and you can see a spring. So this is a practical example which you can see in day to day life. If you apply some force in a spring, what happens? It compresses. And after the release of the force, it regains its original shape. And this principle is known as elasticity. Okay, we can say it in another terms also, which is known as the energy concept. And if you apply a compressive force here, what happens? So the force can be taken in terms of work here. So you are working in an object and you are putting some effort to make the object to compress, and after you release that, if you remove the force which is applied, the object gets into the original shape. So what is happening is you are having certain elastic deformation, and this elastic deformation can be sometimes said as the elastic strain energy. So the strain energy per unit volume is known as the strain energy density, and for each and every material, the elasticity can be measured in terms of strain energy. So what is happening here? The material is strained. If you apply the force, definitely the object will be stressed, and due to the stress, the strain is also proportional, and this strain is termed to be here as the energy. So what is the energy which is stored internal of the object which is released, and if you remove the force, it regains its energy. So this energy is known as elastic strain energy. So after the stage of elasticity, the object goes plastic stage of energy release. So throughout this module, we will be discussing in terms of energy principle, and these are the technical term which is being used in the strain energy, and the area under the stress strain curve towards the point of deformation. You draw a stress strain curve and you will be connecting the points, and the area comes under the stress strain curve which is known as energy density. And if you want to indicate the strain energy in terms of density, if you want to indicate in terms of mass, then you can multiply the stored strain energy into the volume. Strain energy into volume will give the strain energy density. This is what I would like to highlight. So this is a stress strain graph of a material, and if you apply some force, what happens? The object gets stressed and it strains. So within the elastic limit, so this is the area of elasticity, the object has some energy. So how to quantify the energy? So the quantification is required. We know that through physics the energy exists, but how to quantify? The energy can be quantified by using Newton meter. So the area covered under the elastic range is known as elastic strain energy. So the material behaves under elastic mode, hence this is known as elastic strain energy. And after that, the material goes to the plastic stage. If you apply some force after the elastic range, the material does not come into the original shape and it dissipates energy. So whatever the energy goes beyond the elastic stage, this energy is going to dissipate, the energy which will not be recovering, and this is called as dissipated energy. Within these two categories, we are interested only in elastic strain energy. So what is the energy which is stored within the elastic limit? And after the elastic limit also the material has some energy, and during the breaking point you have certain types of energy beyond the scope. These energy methods are powerful tool in obtaining the numerical solution for deflection of problem and also analyzing the statically indeterminate structure. But looking into structural analysis, this energy principle is used to solve the problems under indeterminate structure, that is the structure which have more than 3 number of reactions, and you can find the deflection by using this energy principle. The fundamental quantity required for all energy analysis of structure is elastic strain energy, so which I have indicated here, or work stored in a structure due to elastic deformation. Okay, coming into the structural point of view, how you can measure the strain energy here taken as work stored in a structure. So what do you mean by work? What is the definition of work? In engineering mechanics, we have understood that work is the internal work in a body by an externally applied force, which is the product of force and the distance. So if you multiply the force into the distance, you can find the quantification of work. So what is the amount of internal work done? You can multiply what is the internal force which is applied and what is the displacement. By using force into displacement, you can quantify the work. Once if you quantify the work, you can relate in terms of energy. So how much work you have done, that much of energy you would have exhausted. In this way, the energy principle is being derived and applied in the structures. The internal work is stored in the body as the internal elastic energy of deformation or elastic strain energy. Certain quantity of energy which is inside the object. So if you apply an external force, this energy is being released, and soon as if you remove the force, the internal energy is being recovered. So this energy is known as internal elastic energy, or it is known as elastic strain energy. So this is the interest of the topic. And in deformable bodies, the stress multiplied by the respective area are the forces. Okay. So what are the conditions for strain energy? If we are interested in dealing strain energy, these are the conditions. The material should be loaded in its elastic limit. If that in the case, you can identify the strain energy. And next thing is the material shouldn't undergo permanent deformation, and the amount of strain energy depends upon the amount of load and the type of load loaded. Yes. Next, there is a technical term which is called complementary strain energy. The area enclosed by the inclined line and the vertical axis is called complementary strain energy. So the stress by strain diagram which we have discussed earlier, and if you draw a stress strain diagram, after connecting the lines, the area covered below the line is known as strain energy and above the line is known as complementary strain energy. For a linear elastic material, the complementary strain energy and elastic strain energy are the same. The principle of virtual displacement. If you are knowing the force which is acting in a structure, then you can use the concept of principle of virtual displacement. This states that an elastic structure is in equilibrium under a given loading system if for any virtual displacement of a compatible state of deformation, the virtual work is equal to the virtual strain energy. So this is the formula which is being expressed by this term here. If the forces are known, if the forces are real forces and the external component is known as force and the internal component of the force is known as the stress. So if these two terms are real, then you can identify the unknown component, that is deflection or the strain. So here delta U is known as the virtual displacement, epsilon is indicated as strain. So the displacement is the external term and internally it is known as strain. So the force and the displacement are external component, the stress and strain are internal component of an object. So both should be equal. whatever the work which is done externally will be transferred into the object internally. So if the object which is capable of holding the external work, then the object will be under equilibrium. If you identify the internal capacity of the object, then you can apply the external force that much in order to build a structure. And the unit of strain energy is Newton meter. The force unit is Newton and the displacement unit is meter. So the strain energy unit is Newton meter or joules. This is explained here. So by using this example, we can understand whatever the load which we are acting in the object. So the load at what area which is applied. So you can find the stress. The next component is the object undergoes certain deformation. So if you apply any load, the object does goes to certain deformation, and not only in one direction, the object goes deformed in all the three directions. It might be X, Y or Z. After the application of the load, the object gets a new shape, which is the displaced shape or deformed shape, and the amount of displacement is known as U. So this is the general equation of virtual displacement. So here the term virtual indicates unreal. So the displacement term is unreal here. So this is unknown, hence we are assuming it as unity, that is 1. The force is known here. Okay. The reverse concept is known as the principle of virtual forces. Here the forces are unreal. So virtual in the sense unreal. And you can observe here that the formula here changes as the virtual force. You can apply a unit force in order to find the displacement. In certain cases, I have indicated only the displacement are known and the forces are unknown. So if the forces are unknown, you can make it as the virtual force and you can solve the problem. And if the forces are unreal, the stresses will be unreal, that is virtual stress. Here the displacement and the strain are known here. The same formula which is written in terms of virtual force into displacement equal to integral of virtual stress into strain multiplied by its volume. So here the work is multiplied by its volume. Okay, so this is known as principle of virtual forces. For a deformable body, the total external complementary work is equal to the total internal complementary work. So both will be equal. So this is the external work and the internal work. That is, whatever the force you applied externally will be transferred internally to the object. So you cannot see this, you cannot observe this. Due to the internal characteristics change, the external deflection or deformation occurs. So which is an indirect method to find the requirement. Yes. Now let us go to the derivative part. Okay, we understood what is strain energy and what is energy principle. How can we apply it to an object or in strength of materials and the structural analysis? We are interested in deriving the quantities. Okay, so while starting the analysis, let us start from the axial stress, the forms of elastic strain energy. So we can identify what is the quantity of strain energy which is there in each and every object. In this universe, for each and every object, you can find the strain energy. So how to find that? If you are applying an axial force to this object, so let us take this as a object here which has three dimensions z, x and y. So these are the three dimensions which is being taken here. Stress is being applied. So the stress is applied at x direction dimensions as dz and dx. So these are the dimensions in lateral axis. So what is the distance here? All the three dimensions, and let us take the x axis, and the object has a elemental distance of dx, and at the y direction you can take this object y element as dy. We know the formula to find strain energy is force into distance, that is work. And what is the force which is applied here? The force which is applied is sigma x into the area. So what is the area? Is length into breadth. So what is the length? Dy into dx. What is stress? That is force by area. So if you need force, you can cross multiply the area, so that F equal to F by A equal to sigma. So if you need F, you can cross multiply stress into area. The stress here is sigma x and the areas dy and dz. This is the force component. And what is the displacement? So for each and every stress, there will be a respective strain. So let us take this as a elastic object, and within the elastic limit, let us take a small part of stress and a small part of strain, that is d epsilon x and d sigma x. And if you integrate that, you will get the whole component. Either it might behave linearly or it might behave in a curved manner. So this object is stressed, you will be getting this stress strain curve. For the small amount of force, you will be having the respective strain here. So this is force and this is the distance. How the distance are measured here? The strain change in length by original length. If you need distance, you can multiply the original length with the strain, and these are the components. And if you multiply this term, you will be getting sigma x, dy, dz and dx. So you can take this as the volume, and if you multiply length, breadth and width, you will be getting the volume of the object. Hence these three terms are considered it as the volume. Okay, now this is the work which is applied in the object. So what is the work here? The work here is the axial force. If you apply any axial force, you are doing certain work, and for the axial force you will be getting the strain energy equation as sigma into d epsilon x dv. So this is the component. Okay, if we want to find the strain energy for the whole component, so we have identified for a single point of area. So what about the totality? If you need to find for the total object, you can integrate with 0 to x. So what might be the total displacement? Let us keep it as epsilon x. If you integrate with respect to the volume, so you will be getting the strain energy of the whole object. So stress can be also indicated as Young's modulus into the strain here, and you know that Young's modulus equal to stress by strain. If you cross multiply, you will be getting stress as Young's modulus by strain, and instead of the stress, you can write otherwise in terms of Young's modulus by strain, and you have a component of strain here. So if you multiply epsilon x into epsilon x, it will become epsilon x square. Okay, you can further reduce this equation by expanding this equation. So what is strain? You can write it as stress by Young's modulus, and instead of strain you are taking stress by Young's modulus. So you will be getting stress square by Young's modulus square, and you have a Young's modulus here, so it will get cancelled, and you will be getting stress square divided by 2 times Young's modulus as the dV. So this will be the strain energy stored due to the axial force. Okay, what happens if you apply a shear force in an object? So the same particle is taken here. Let us take the least size of the object here, and we have given a 3 dimension as the axis, and imagine that you are applying a shear stress here. So the object is same. According to the action of force, the strain energy differs. So if you apply axial force, you will have strain carrying capacity, and if you apply shear force, you will be having a different strain energy of an object. Okay. The same way we are drawing a shear stress and shear strain graph. So this is a stress strain graph. If you apply a shear force here, you will be having a shear strain here. Shear stress is taken as tau xy and strain is taken as gamma xy. Let us take a small portion here, or the small object which is known as d gamma xy and dy. We know that the formula for strain energy is the work. So what is the work which is required? How to find that? Force into distance. And what is the force which is applied here? This is shear force. So the shear force creates the shear stress here. This will be the work which is done here, and if you integrate, this is the ultimate load which can happen within the elastic limit for this object, hence we are multiplying it by dV. So throughout its volume, if you take it into a complete volume, whatever might be the volume, so if you identify a defined volume, you can substitute here. So this will be the strain energy for a shearing stress. G is the rigidity modulus here, and G is shear stress by shear strain, and you can write the shear stress in terms of rigidity modulus into shear strain, that is G into gamma xy. So earlier you have gamma xy here, and if you multiply G into gamma xy, you will be getting G gamma xy square divided by 2. So this equation reduces to this form, and further you can write the same way as we have done in axial stress. You can write shear strain in terms of shear stress divided by rigidity modulus. So shear stress square by rigidity modulus square, that is G square. So you have G here, you can cancel that and you will be getting shear stress divided by 2G, and you can further simplify this as stress into shear strain, that is tau xy into gamma xy by 2 into dV. So strain energy stored in an object due to shear stress will be tau xy and gamma xy by 2 into the volume. The shear strain energy density for a shear becomes, so you can cross multiply this, and du by dV equal to half shear stress by shear strain. So this will be the strain energy density for shear. We also know that if you apply any axial force in an object, so what is the formula to find axial force is force by area. If you apply a shear force, then it will be a shear force by shear area. If this is axial force, you can take it as F by A. If it is a shear force, you can take it as V by A. If you apply a tensile force, you can use plus, and if you apply a compressive force, you can take it as minus. This is the bending equation, and if you apply a moment in an object, the same stress can be written in terms of m by I into sigma by y. So this will be the general equation. Here the sigma will be bending, but here the sigma will be axial. So if you apply any axial force by area in order to find axial force, if you are applying a bending force, and you can find the bending by my by I. Similarly, if you need bending shear, you can use VQ by IT as the formula. This is axial shear and this is bending shear. So you have two different formulas. And if you apply a torsional force, you can find by using this equation. So T by J equal to tau by R. So here R is in terms of rho here, and you can cross multiply this. If you apply any torsional force, the torsional shear can be found out by T by J into the radius. And these are the formula which is required to recollect in order to derive certain components. Okay, so let us find the derivation. If you have any object which is a prismatic member, so it might have a length of x and width of z and depth of y. So if you have any prismatic object here, now let us find if you apply any axial force and what is the strain energy in an object, and let us apply a bending force. So like that, let us apply different types of force in a prismatic object and let us find the equation for each and every component. Okay, so let us find the axially loaded member. If you have a prismatic object here which is having a well defined length of L here. So in the previous derivation we are not knowing the complete length, hence we integrated, but now we know the defined length here. So let us derive the equation for an object which is having a definite length and the volume of an object. If you apply any axial force in that object, what will be the equation? We know that if you apply any axial force, the formula is stress square divided by 2E into dV. So this is the equation here. If you take the differentiation outside the equation, it will become integration. So if you need strain energy, you can integrate this equation. So the same equation is used here. So why we are integrating 3 times? We have 3 axes, that is x, y and z. So the volume has 3 dimensions, hence we are integrating 3 times. Okay, so this is the conventional equation which we have already derived, and we know that stress is force by area, that is load by area, which we identified here. Since this is axial force, the stress will be F by A, that is load by area. So instead of stress, you can write P square by A square. So this is P is known as the force which is applied, and A is the area, that is the cross sectional area. Okay, so you have integration here. Let us integrate with respect to x, y and z. We know that if you integrate with respect to dy and dz, you will be getting the area here. The z and y terms are the area. So if you integrate, you will be getting the breadth and depth. So what is breadth and depth? Which is none other than the area. So you will be getting p square into a. If you cancel the a and the a square, you will be getting p square divided by 2ae, where a single integration along the length L gives the required quantity, and this will be the equation. Okay, for the same prismatic object, if you apply any bending load, this is an object, you are applying a bending load, so what will be the strain energy due to bending? So the strain energy due to axial force, which we have identified here, the strain energy due to bending will be, we know that stress here now becomes m by I into y. So this is the bending equation, m by I equal to sigma by y. So instead of the stress, include the value of mi by y. So instead of this value sigma x, we will be applying, we will be taking the same equation here, and instead of sigma x, we will be applying the bending force. Now the force is not axial here, the force is bending. Okay, so if you square m square I square into y square, so this will be your answer here, and we can take the component which is odd here, that is you can make y square, and if you integrate the area into the distance, which is eventually the moment of inertia, so you will be getting the moment of inertia when you differentiate y square into the area. The formula for moment of inertia is area into the neutral axis distance. So y is the axis distance here, so So if you integrate with the y square, you will be getting I. Hence, you are having a I square here. It both will get cancelled, and your equation reduces to m square by 2ei into dx. So which will be the strain energy. So your strain energy will be integration of 0 to L m square by 2ei. Okay. Now let us apply a shear force in this object, and if you apply any shear force, the equation is, we know that the shear strain energy is tau square divided by 2g into dv, which we have derived here, and we will be using this same equation here, tau square xy divided by 2g. So if you are integrating the component, we know that shear stress, which is here, the shear is in terms of bending shear. So for a bending shear, the formula which we have seen here is VQ divided by IT. So this is the bending shear, and hence we will be applying, instead of tau xy, this equation, that is VQ divided by IT. What happens? What is V here? V is the shear force which is applied, and Q is the area of the section above the point of shear stress, that is A, into the centroidal distance of the neutral axis. So Q equal to A into y bar. So the area here is the area above the prismatic section here, and the centroidal distance, which is the y bar. The centroid of the half of this area, which you have to take. Okay. What is I here? Which is the moment of inertia about the neutral axis of the section, and B will be the width of the section. Okay. So by this term, let us substitute here. How to find Q for this equation? Q will be the area of the section above the point of shear stress, B into Y. So B is the breadth, that is the depth is the Y. So B into Y will be the area. So Q equal to area, which is B into Y. So this is the elemental distance we have taken. Y bar will be the elemental distance. If you integrate this, you will be getting y square divided by 2. So if you substitute the upper limit and the lower limit, d square divided by 4 minus y1. So this is the upper limit and the lower limit. Now if you substitute Q in the previous equation, so let us take V by 2GI outside, and let us keep the rest of the components, that is Q by T, and if you integrate with the other two components, that is dy by dx, what will happen? You know the component of Q here, so let us substitute the Q in terms of B by 4. Here the T, instead of T, you have to substitute the width in terms of B, so Q by B. So Q by B square integration of dy by dx. Our limit will be minus d by 2 to plus d by 2. So if you square this equation, it will become b square by 2 square. So 2 square will become 4 here, and you already have a b component here, and b and b square will get cancelled, and you will be having only b by 4 here, and the rest of the component are kept as it is with the square. So if you integrate with the limit with respect to dy, you will be getting b d power 5 divided by 120, and we know that I equal to b d cube by 12, which is the moment of inertia, and A in terms of B and D. If you substitute this component in this equation, you will be getting the strain energy as 0 to L, that is the length of the member, into 1.2 V square divided by 2 GA dx. In general, we can write the strain energy due to shear is U equal to K. Let us take the 1.2 as K, that is a constant outside, and V square divided by 2GA into dx. So this will be the general equation, where K is a constant whose value is dependent on the shape of the cross section as noted above, and the value of K for rectangle is 1.2. So if you have a different member which might have a circular section, you will be substituting the Q in terms of area of the above section. Here the formula changes and you can derive accordingly. The only one component which will be changed, that is the K. Okay. Now let us apply a torsional force for this object. We know that the torsional stress, that is T by J equal to tau by R, that is the radius. So this is the general equation. So instead of the shear stress equation which we have used earlier, we can use this equation. If you substitute in the strain energy, you will be getting the torsional strain energy. Instead of the shear force, that is tau xy square, you will be applying the equation here. So we have already derived tau square xy. So instead of tau square, we will be substituting the tau square. Now here is the torsional shear. So T by J into the radius. So if you square this, T square radius square divided by J square divided by 2G is already here. So what is the radius into dy dx, which will be the polar moment of inertia. So that is J here. If you integrate this, you will be getting the general, this is the general equation for polar moment of inertia, that is J. So this can be converted as J, and J and J square will get cancelled and you will be getting 2GJ, so which is written here, and the general equation reduces to T square divided by 2GJ into dx. So if you integrate with respect to the length. Okay, now we have applied axial force, bending force, shear and torsion. So according to the type of force, the same prismatic object have different internal stored strain energy. If you need to find the total strain energy of the object, you can add all the components. So these are the equations which we have derived at each and every end of the condition. Now for the torsional force, we have derived as T square divided by 2GJ and T square divided by 2GJ integration of 0 to L. So the limit will be the 0 to L here and all the values. So if you add all the values, you will be getting the total strain energy of the object. And you can observe a common phenomena here. If you apply axial force, the force component is here. If you apply a bending force, then the moment is here. And the strain energy is inversely proportional to the Young's modulus and the area. Either it might be a Young's modulus or a rigidity modulus. The moment of inertia and the polar moment of inertia are the inversely proportional component of the strain energy. So you can see this similarity. You can use the below equation in order to solve the prismatic element. It might be at same length or at the different length. According to the type of force, the strain energy differs for the same object. If you have found out the strain energy of the object, so each and every object has the internal strain energy. According to the application of force, the strain energy differs. So if you apply axial force, your strain energy will become axial strain energy, and you can find the amount of axial strain energy which is stored in an object. If any external force which is acting in that object, up to this energy which is stored, it will release the energy, and above that if any force is applied, then it will go to the plastic stage and the energy dissipates. So you cannot recover the object. And by this concept, Now in this class we have identified what is energy theorem, how it is derived, and how it can be applied for a object. And by this equation and this solution cases we will apply for the practical cases, that is structural analysis cases. So far we have discussed the concept and let us apply in the further classes. And I hope you enjoyed the session. Happy learning. See you again. Thank you.